and we're just busy, and this case keeps interrupting us.
Yes, it does. I know. Another day, another filing, this time by Ryan Reynolds himself.
Never heard of him.
Yeah, well, you may be the only one in this universe who hasn't heard of him, but he has filed and he wants out of the case, and wow, the gloves are coming off.
The gloves came off in this one. I heard you laughing as you were reading it, and I'm sure we're going to get into
big story, Kim. Ryan Reynolds is now trying to dismiss the case against Justin. And what's crazy about it is it's so emotionally charged. I can't help but believe he wasn't instrumental in writing this motion.
The legal dispute between Ryan Reynolds and Justin Baldoni has gained significant attention after Reynolds filed a motion to dismiss Baldoni's lawsuit. The conflict began when Baldoni accused Reynolds of using the character Nicepool in Deadpool.
Heard that during the premiere of his movie, Deadpool Wolverine, Reynolds approached Baldoni's agent, namely an executive at WME, and expressed his deep disdain for Baldoni, suggesting the agency was working with a, quote, sexual predator.
Baldoni's legal team has pointed to specific dialogue and mannerisms of Nicepool, which they claim closely mimic Baldoni's public persona, further solidifying their argument that this was a calculated act rather than a harmless parody. However, Reynolds' legal team argues that emotional distress alone does not constitute a legitimate legal claim.
And his co-plaintiff filed seeks to fulfill the promise by polluting this court's docket with hundreds of paragraphs of clickbait designed for an audience other than this court, with virtually no bearing on cognizable legal claims.
Which I just found ironic, given that that's what she did with the New York Times. She not only had a bunch of texts and paragraphs to overdo it all, she gave it to them months in advance.
They maintain that parody and satire are legally protected under free speech, and Baldoni's lawsuit lacks merit. Reynolds' defense hinges on the well-established legal precedent that allows creative works to include satirical depictions of public figures without legal repercussions. His attorneys argue that Deadpool and Wolverine is a fictional work, and any resemblance to real-life figures falls under artistic and comedic expression, not defamation or targeted harassment. Legal experts suggest that this case could have broader implications for Hollywood, especially in the ongoing debate over satire and personal rights in entertainment. If Baldoni's claims are upheld, it could set a precedent that limits how filmmakers and writers incorporate real-life inspirations into their work.
That during the premiere of his movie, Deadpool Wolverine, Reynolds approached Baldoni's agent, namely an executive at WME, and expressed his deep disdain for Baldoni, suggesting the agency was working with a, quote, sexual predator. So those are the two statements that come out of the first amended complaint.
Was the executive Ari Emanuel, or do we know?
I think it was. I mean, they didn't say that in the complaint, but I think that's pretty clear who he's talking.
Particularly when dealing with humor and social commentary. On the other hand, if the court sides with Reynolds and dismisses the case, it will reaffirm the strong legal protections for artistic expression in Hollywood.
And so what Ryan Reynolds is doing here is he's saying that there has not been sufficient allegations made for defamation. That's the primary thing here. There's some other ones too on intentional interference, but it's mainly the defamation claims that he says has not been properly pleaded against him.
Many in the industry are closely watching the case, as its outcome could determine how satire is handled in the future. Filmmakers, comedians, and content creators frequently rely on parody as a tool for storytelling, and any legal restrictions could fundamentally alter creative freedom in Hollywood. The case is set to be closely scrutinized, and its verdict may shape the boundaries of satire, personal reputation, and artistic expression in modern entertainment. Blake Lively, actress and wife of Ryan Reynolds, has come forward with serious allegations against Justin Baldoni, her co-star in It Ends With Us. According to Lively, Baldoni engaged in inappropriate behavior on set, making her feel uncomfortable during filming.
The Hollywood actress Blake Lively has filed a legal complaint against her. It Ends With Us co-star Justin Baldoni, alleging sexual harassment and a campaign to destroy her reputation. Blake Lively says she wants to pull back the curtain on sinister tactics used to harm people who speak up about misconduct.
She claims that his actions amounted to sexual harassment, sparking controversy within the industry. Lively alleges that Baldoni's misconduct was not limited to on-set interactions, but extended beyond the production environment. She accuses him of attempting to tarnish her reputation by spreading negative stories through his publicists and industry contacts, These alleged smear campaigns, she claims, were designed to undermine her credibility, harm her professional relationships, and damage her standing in Hollywood. The actress maintains that Baldoni deliberately orchestrated these attacks in an effort to discredit her and shift attention away from his own alleged behavior.
He claims he sexual harassed her, and then by the time they premiered the movie, they weren't even speaking to each other. She made him stay in the basement, and Ryan Reynolds turned on him too. And then she claimed that he unleashed a bad PR campaign against her.
While Baldoni has denied these accusations, insiders suggest that tensions between the two actors have been brewing for some time. Reports indicate that there were disagreements between them even before filming began, though neither party made public statements about any conflicts at the time.
He claims none of that is true. There was absolutely no harassment. Those are made-up claims. She wrested his movie away from him and decided to try to hurt him with petty, made-up, out-of-context complaints when he pushed back even in the mildest way, and that she and her husband are bullies.
Some industry sources believe that their strained relationship may have contributed to the escalating situation, while others speculate that personal and professional rivalries played a role. The allegations have divided public opinion, with some supporting Lively's claims and others calling for concrete evidence before passing judgment. Fans of both actors have taken to social media to express their views, with some demanding accountability and others urging due process before making assumptions. Legal experts note that if Lively decides to pursue legal action, the case could have serious consequences for Baldoni's career, potentially affecting his ability to secure future roles and collaborations. This controversy comes at a time when Hollywood remains under intense scrutiny for its handling of workplace harassment cases. In the wake of the Me Too movement, the industry has seen increased calls for accountability, transparency, and reform. If Lively's claims gain legal traction, the case could reignite discussions about power dynamics, harassment, and the responsibility of studios to protect their actors and employees. Meanwhile, Baldoni's team continues to strongly refute the allegations, calling them baseless.
Well, what you don't know is a lot, right? Because Blake Lively's dominated the media. What they did was they worked with the New York Times. Her publicist worked directly with the New York Times. They shared illegally obtained text messages. They shared those together. They concocted a complaint that they filed with the Civil Rights Division. They omitted
and an attempt to damage his reputation. Both actors now find themselves at the center of intense media scrutiny, with the entertainment industry closely watching how this high-profile dispute unfolds. As the situation develops, it remains to be seen whether legal action will be taken and what impact this controversy will have on both their careers. Justin Baldoni has escalated the legal battle by filing a countersuit against Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively, alleging a coordinated effort to ruin his career. According to Baldoni, Reynolds and Lively conspired to spread damaging accusations about him, leading to severe professional setbacks. The lawsuit claims that their actions were intentional and aimed at destroying his reputation in Hollywood. Baldoni argues that the couple used their powerful influence in the industry to manipulate narratives against him, making it difficult for him to secure projects and maintain professional relationships. One of Baldoni's most serious allegations is that Reynolds personally referred to him as a sexual predator in conversations with industry executives. Baldoni asserts that Reynolds leveraged his Hollywood connections to pressure major talent agencies, including WME, to sever ties with him.
But it is an interesting claim, and it does seem to go to this issue of, did Ryan Reynolds get WME to fire Baldoni, and would that be an intentional interference with that contract? Let's go down to the next page, 21, and it's the first full paragraph.
As a result, Baldoni claims he lost career-defining opportunities, including leading roles in high-profile for projects and endorsement deals. He contends that these allegations have not only affected his work, but also subjected him to public humiliation and personal distress. Additionally, Baldoni alleges that Lively played an active role in the smear campaign, using her industry connections to circulate negative press about him. He argues that her influence, combined with Reynolds' standing in Hollywood, created a hostile environment that led to widespread backlash against him.
But the FAC itself asserts that Miss Lively and Mr. Reynolds were motivated, at least in part, by a desire to seize control over a film production. So, I mean, I think that you don't necessarily have to use any magical words in a complaint. I don't think you have to say malice. You just have to allege facts that go to that effect.
The lawsuit states that the couple's actions were not only defamatory, but also financially devastating, significantly reducing his earning potential. Baldoni claims that due to their alleged defamation, several major studios became hesitant to associate with him, further worsening his situation. Reynolds and Lively have not publicly responded to the countersuit, but sources close to them dismiss Baldoni's claims as an attempt to shift blame and escape accountability. They argue that Baldoni is using the lawsuit as a distraction from the initial accusations made against him. Meanwhile, legal analysts suggest that this case could become a landmark defamation battle in Hollywood, potentially setting new legal precedents regarding public figures, media narratives, and reputation management. As the lawsuit progresses, industry insiders are closely monitoring the fallout. If Baldoni can provide substantial evidence to support his claims, it could lead to further legal complications for Reynolds and Lively. Conversely, if the court rules in favor of Reynolds and Lively, it may reinforce the legal protections surrounding public allegations and free speech. Regardless of the outcome, this case is shaping up to be one of the most high-profile Hollywood disputes in recent years. Ryan Reynolds' legal team is aggressively pushing back against Justin Baldoni's countersuit, arguing that Reynolds' alleged statements are protected under the First Amendment. They claim that referring to someone as a predator is an expression of opinion rather than a factual accusation, making it legally permissible. According to Reynolds' attorneys, defamation laws do not apply to opinions.
Allegedly that Mr. Reynolds called Mr. Baldoni a predator, and saying that the FAC allegations suggest that Mr. Reynolds genuinely, perhaps passionately, believes that Mr. Baldoni's behavior is reflective of a predator. Even the FAC plausibly alleged that Mr. Reynolds called Mr. Baldoni a predator while believing the opposite, which it does not. The law establishes that calling someone a predator amounts to constitutionally protected opinion. And the FAC's thin-skinned outrage over a movie character, the satirical woke nice pool, does not even pretend to be tied to any actual legal claims. Instead,
Particularly in the context of a high-profile industry dispute where personal perspectives and subjective interpretations are common. They assert that Reynolds was merely expressing concern based on existing reports and that his words should not be classified as defamatory statements. Further strengthening Reynolds' defense, his legal team is bringing attention to Baldoni's own past statements. They argue that Baldoni has previously admitted to crossing boundaries in interviews and public discussions. If Baldoni himself has acknowledged inappropriate behavior in the past, Reynolds' legal team contends, then Reynolds' remarks were not baseless, but rather a reasonable interpretation of Baldoni's own conduct. They claim that this context is crucial in determining whether Reynolds' statements can truly be considered defamatory or whether they fall within the scope of legally protected speech. Legal experts suggest that this First Amendment defense could present a major hurdle for Baldoni's lawsuit. Courts have historically been reluctant to penalize individuals for making subjective statements, especially when the individuals involved are public figures. In past defamation cases, judges have ruled that statements of opinion, particularly those made in public discourse, do not meet the legal standard for defamation unless they contain knowingly false information presented as fact. If Reynolds' attorneys can successfully argue that his comments were non-actionable opinions, rather than outright accusations, Baldoni's defamation claims could be dismissed. Additionally, Reynolds' team is expected to highlight Baldoni's own role in escalating the conflict. They may argue that Baldoni's countersuit is a retaliatory move designed to silence criticism rather than a legitimate legal claim. By framing Baldoni's legal action as an attempt to suppress free speech, Reynolds' defense could shift the focus of the case away from defamation and onto broader issues of First Amendment protections in Hollywood. As this legal battle unfolds, the case is expected to draw significant public and industry attention. It may set new precedents regarding the limits of free speech in Hollywood and whether public accusations, no matter how damaging, can be legally challenged. The outcome, could influence future disputes involving celebrities and the extent to which personal opinions impact reputations in the entertainment industry. Justin Baldoni's attorney, Brian Friedman, has responded forcefully to Ryan Reynolds' motion to dismiss, accusing the Hollywood star of leveraging his industry influence to blacklist Baldoni.
And so Brian Friedman did a masterful job, and he even tries to use a neutral tone as he's going through it. I don't know that he hits on a neutral tone all the way through. He does represent Baldoni after all. I'm sure he wants to do well for him, but if you read that Exhibit A, it's riveting. It takes you a couple hours to get through it, and it gives you beginning to end. So if I was Ryan Reynolds, I'd be really concerned about that in Exhibit A. What do you think, Keith?
Yeah, well, I think he is, because look at the Section 4.
Oh, what happened?
He wants the court to strike Exhibit A to Baldoni's First Amendment complaint. I mean, this is really amazing. And, he's saying that as this court has recognized, permitting a party to satisfy its pleading requirements.
Friedman argues that Reynolds' legal defense is nothing more than a calculated effort to escape accountability for the damage he has allegedly caused. According to Baldoni's legal team, the motion to dismiss is an attempt to silence Baldoni and prevent the truth from coming to light, rather than a legitimate legal argument based on constitutional protections. Friedman asserts that Reynolds' attempt to dismiss the case on First Amendment grounds is a strategic move to trivialize what Baldoni sees as serious defamation and career sabotage. He maintains that calling someone a sexual predator in a professional environment is not merely an opinion, but a direct attack on a person's reputation, one that carries severe consequences in Hollywood. Friedman contends that Reynolds' words went beyond personal opinion and were intentionally designed to destroy Baldoni's career. He alleges that Reynolds used his power and industry connections to pressure talent agencies and studios, including major players like WME, into cutting ties with Baldoni, ultimately causing him financial and professional harm. Legal analysts suggest that this case could hinge on whether Reynolds' comments are interpreted as opinion or as defamatory statements with real-world consequences. Defamation cases involving public figures are notoriously difficult to win, as plaintiffs must prove actual malice, that the defendant knowingly spread false information with the intent to harm. However, if Baldoni's legal team can provide evidence that Reynolds actively influenced major industry figures to blacklist him, the case could move forward despite Reynolds' First Amendment defense. Testimony from executives or leaked communication could be critical in proving Reynolds' alleged role in Baldoni's downfall. Friedman remains adamant that Reynolds' legal argument should not overshadow the core issue: the impact of public's accusations in an industry where reputation determines success. He argues that allowing powerful figures to make damaging statements under the guise of free speech sets a dangerous precedent, potentially enabling career destruction without consequence. As the case develops, it is expected to spark wider discussions about power dynamics in Hollywood and the fine line between free speech and career destruction. If the lawsuit proceeds, it could set a legal precedent for how public statements, especially those made by influential figures, are treated in defamation law moving forward. In a bold legal move, Justin Baldoni has expanded his lawsuit beyond Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively, now targeting the New York Times and prominent Hollywood publicist Leslie Sloan.
Before Melissa Nathan, the crisis PR person, was hired, you can see Leslie Sloan planting stories. We have evidence of it. The young kids would call it receipts. We call it evidence. And it's all over the place. There are text messages that refute every single thing in that complaint. And it's just disgusting when you go after someone, you try to destroy their life. And
Baldoni claims that the media outlet played a key role in spreading false accusations against him by publishing an article based on Lively's allegations. His legal team argues that the New York Times failed to verify the claims before running the story, thereby damaging his reputation on a massive scale.
If the New York Times apparently reviewed 1,000 or more pages of text messages, they would have seen it. Justin never wanted to hurt her, never wanted to be negative to her. He wanted to protect the film, he wanted to protect himself, and he wanted to protect her from making negative allegations about him that were made up. And that
they contend that the outlet's failure to fact-check led to widespread public condemnation, making it difficult for Baldoni to defend himself against the allegations. Baldoni's lawsuit also names Leslie Sloan, the longtime publicist for Reynolds, and Lively, accusing her of orchestrating a coordinated smear campaign against him. According to Baldoni, Sloan used her extensive media connections to plant negative stories about him, reinforcing the accusations and making it nearly impossible for him to protect his image. His legal team asserts that these actions were not just reckless, but deliberately designed to destroy his career.
Actually, Blake Lively's publicist, Leslie Sloan, was planting stories negative to Justin. And all Justin wanted to do, and it's all through the text messages. If the New York Times apparently reviewed 1,000 or more pages of text messages, they would have seen it.
They argue that Sloan, acting on behalf of her high-profile clients, engaged in an orchestrated attack to shape public opinion against Baldoni, leading to severe personal and professional consequences. Legal experts note that suing a major media outlet like the New York Times presents a significant challenge. In defamation cases involving the press, the burden of proof is exceptionally high, requiring Baldoni to demonstrate actual malice.
Actually, Blake Lively's publicist, Leslie Sloan, was planting stories negative to Justin. And all Justin wanted to do, and it's all through the text messages. If the New York Times apparently reviewed 1,000 or more pages of text messages, they would have seen it.
This means he must prove that the publication knowingly spread false information or acted with reckless disregard for the truth. The First Amendment provides strong protections for the press, and courts have historically favored media organizations in such disputes, making Baldoni's case an uphill battle. However, if his legal team can provide substantial evidence, such as internal emails, communications, or sources that discredit the original reporting, he may have a chance of proving his claims. Despite the difficult legal road ahead, Baldoni remains determined to hold all parties accountable. His lawsuit raises critical questions about the role of media in public controversies and the potential consequences of unchecked narratives that can shape public perception. If successful, his case could set a precedent for how media outlets and publicists handle allegations against public figures, potentially reshaping the way Hollywood and journalism interact in high-profile disputes.